Hey, Michael here with you from Mountain Strong, and actually on the back porch of the house today. So this is part of a series where I share things that I think are useful and helpful, but are not necessarily directly fitness or mountain endurance related. The reason is probably threefold. One is I like to tell stories. I like to share things that I have found to be useful, interesting, whether it's a physical thing or a concept, or an idea, or a book, or whatever. So one is simply like I like to tell stories and I like to share this stuff. The second is that I believe that when we think about being mountain strong and we think about our capacity to play in the mountains for long periods of time, we are inherently talking about overall wellness and longevity. There is no one who gets to be 80 years old and is regularly climbing and skiing and playing who has not made some good decisions along the way in their life. And we know that VO2 max is a really good indicator of longevity and all-cause mortality. We know that your grip strength is a really good indicator. An idea that we're playing with a lot at Mountain Strong right now is actually the amount of internal rotation that you have in a hip as a predictor of knee, hip, ankle, foot things that can show up for us in the future. Sorry, my neighbor's dog is excited. I'm not sure if that's showing up on audio. And so there are all these pieces, right? That when we think about, hey, how do we move, how do we play, how do we live when we're 70, 80, 90, that really factor in, and real quick story. My dad's going to turn 82 in November, 81. No. 85. Okay, my dad's going to turn 85 in November, and that's pretty cool. And one of the things that my dad has done is he has, for his entire life, prioritized relationships. When he moved to Western Michigan, he found some groups of people who like stuff that he likes, and those friendships and relationships have been a part of his life ever since. And that's a really important thing, and that's a really important piece for him. And so one of the aspects of being mountain strong is actually our relationships. And so I'm just going to pause there and pivot again. A couple of weeks ago, a client of mine, in a conversation that was not about training, obviously, we were talking about leadership. And we were talking about how one of the pieces that's a true mark of leadership is the capacity to have the hard conversations. Leaders are ideally friendly with the people that they lead, but it's not primarily a friendship relationship. It's a mission-driven relationship. We've got things we want to do. We want to help people. We want to conquer the world. We want to make more money. There is an objective. There's a thing that we want to accomplish. And it's the leader's job to help the whole team to keep their eye on the prize, keep that focus. The Dr. Becky Kennedy, who's a parent coach, talks about sturdy parenting, being a sturdy leader as her label of what she thinks a quality parent, what good parenting looks like. And I happen to agree with her. And what that means is my kid is Sam is feeling upset about something. I'm going to validate his emotions, but his emotions aren't going to dictate what happens next. I'm picking him up from school today. If he decides he doesn't want to go to the grocery store, he will. But if he was like, no, I don't want to go to the grocery store. I want to go straight home. So I can say, hey, Sam, I understand. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know it's not what you want to do. Good news is we will go home after the grocery store, but we do need to stop at the grocery store and get some fruit and pouches and some half and half fruit. So we got to add to coffee. That's the conversation we have. And what are we going to do? We're going to go to the grocery store. If we need to spend a few minutes in the car, just kind of helping him work through those emotions and validating him, it's cool. That's fine. But the thing that's going to happen is still going to happen. And so that's Becky Kennedy's language of sturdy leadership. I actually think that's the key for all leadership. And so here we go. Here's the point. This book, Supercommunicators. My team and I have been reading this, and by team I mean the coaches who work with me at Mountain Strong. We've been reading this. We just did the first 2 chapters. Had our little coaches book group on that we do every other Wednesday night in our team meeting. We did that last night, and it was a great conversation. And what was really cool was that we framed the conversation not just about how do we talk to the people we coach, but also just how do we talk to people in our lives. Parents came up a lot. Fascinating. We were all like, yeah, sometimes relationships with parents are hard, which like hit home for definitely 3 of the 4 of us were like nodding at that notion. But I wanted to share one thing from the beginning of this book that I think is really a game changer. The author lays out this notion that there are 3 different kinds of relationships that we can, 3 different kinds of conversations that we can have. We can have conversations, bear with me one second, I'm going to flip to the page. I should have marked this in advance, but I got to it fast. So there's 3 types of conversations we can have. We can have the conversations that is the, like, what's this really about conversation? What are we talking about? What do we need to talk about? It's getting people, it's getting clear that we're like truly on the same page. It's the conversation before the conversation. One of the things that I've tried to do lately in my life has been to, especially with harder conversations, to actually frame it as, hey, is now a good time? We need to talk about, I want to talk about the schedule. I want to talk about what we're doing on Sunday. I want to talk about, like, I've got a little bit of feedback for you with something I saw in your coaching with a client this week. Is now a good time for that conversation? And because I want to make sure that the person that I'm talking to is receptive. The conversation is far more effective if we're on the same page. And so when his notion of, what's this really about is very much that let's you and I get aligned. And so we're on the same page so we can have the productive conversation. And in the case of, coaching my coaches, productive means they do the thing better next time. In coaching my kid, he does the thing better next time. In a conversation about our family plans for the weekend, it's like, do we have plans that we all feel good about? And did we go through a process that felt good to all of us to get to those plans? The second type of conversation we can have is a how do we feel conversation, which is like, what do we, it's kind of like getting into the what do we need? And how do you feel about a thing? And how do I feel about a thing? And because what can happen is we can get misaligned on that notion. Sometimes I am a feeler, and my wife is a fixer. And it's not the only things we're capable of doing. I don't feel everything all the time, but I'm a big emotion kind of guy. And Hallmark movies regularly make me cry, and I've decided I'm actually really cool with that. So, but if my wife is presented with a problem, her tendency is to want to fix it. And so, if I say, hey gosh, I'm having a really hard day today, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, her general response is, well, here, let me hang out. I'm gonna hang out with Sam, and why don't you go take a nap? And it's like, no, I didn't need a solution. What I actually needed was to connect with you and feel heard. That's another big piece the author talks about, is that in a lot of cases in conversation, one of the things that we want and we need and we feel really good after the conversation is if we feel seen and heard, and if both people do, and we can kind of match each other's tenor and emotional state. And if I'm having a conversation where I need to feel seen and heard, and my wife is in a conversation where her drive is to fix a thing, then that mismatch actually means that conversation doesn't end up feeling good for either one of us. Now, I might get to take a break and go take a nap for half an hour, and I might feel better, but that was only one piece of it. I also wanted that conversation to be an opportunity to connect, and we failed to do that because we were having 2 different types of conversations. That's really the author's big point in the opening chapters. The third kind of conversation we can have is the who are we conversation. And not so much the hey, we've been hanging out for a couple months and, we're more than friends and, and spend a lot of nights together. Who are we? It's not exactly that, although that conversation falls into this category. But the who are we conversation is really about identity. It's who am I and how do I identify in this world? And what are the things that are really important to me? And that's a piece of feeling seen and heard. So I'm going to summarize all of this with 2 main points. 1, as you go about the world, remember that the world is full of humans, and we're all humans, and we're all having human interactions. And that is actually an aspect of quality of life. and building the skills to be better at that, even if you're really good, having the skills to be even better at that totally pays off. You know, I am generally pretty good at meeting people where they are in a conversation when it comes to my business stuff. Talking to someone for the first time, meeting someone, taking someone through a consult and assessment, and like getting them signed up and like working with us as a client with our coaches. Like I'm like pretty good at that, right? If we're a good fit and financially it's reasonable for someone, most people like come on board. It's pretty rare that doesn't happen. In fact, the few times recently that I could think about that not happening, it was really specifically because the person I was talking to was looking for a thing. They were actually looking to have lots of like, who are we conversations. They wanted their identity validated, and like aspects of their identity where they're actually tying themselves to other people that I don't necessarily agree with. Whew. I feel like that's a rabbit hole. But the short version of this is like political identity. I consider myself to be pretty good at staying neutral, and I will have a reasonable conversation. I will have a conversation with anybody who is interested in a reasonable conversation, especially if we disagree. I like knowing where people are coming from when we don't agree. I think that's actually far more useful and interesting and cognitively fun than simply talking to people who agree with me all the time. But that also means like you can't be your identity can't be tied to those political pieces, and for both of these individuals it really was, and it was like, well, this isn't going to work because you want to spend all this time on the political stuff just like I have. So lesson one, we're all humans, we're all having human interactions. Man, when you go to the coffee shop next time, if you don't go to coffee shops, next time you go to the grocery store and get bread sliced or turkey sliced, kind of whatever, right? All of these like small interactions, think about ways that you can engage your barista, the person cutting your turkey, and like have a different type of moment with that person. If you feel like that person remembers you, that's a really good mark. And and we're not trying to be sleazy, and we're not just like trying to like hit someone up. It's actually the opportunity to connect with that person in a way where you get them engaged in a short dialogue. If what you say every time is like, hey, how's your day going? Man, they hear that 1,000 times a day, and that's a very transactional kind of question. What's a different kind of question that you could use? You might try like, hey, I've got a question for you. Can I ask you a question? They're like, yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, how's your day today? And they pause, and they're probably going to go like, I don't know, 6. They're like, I'm really curious. What would it take to make it a 10? Or what would it take to get to at least a like 8? And they're like, I don't know. Like, I wish someone would tell me a joke. Cool, throw out a joke. Where does a lizard go when it loses its tail? ... The retail store. You're welcome. And then the other big piece here, right? Piece one is you're having relationships. Get really good at making those quality interactions. And point number 2, in those interactions, in all of your interactions, aim to get to the place where you and the other person you're talking to understand what you're talking about. Try to avoid having 2 different conversations. And yes, it means there's a little bit of pre-work. It means that there's a little bit of like give and take, and you have to be receptive. And for some of us, it's really hard to do. I feel like that's a skill that's taking me decades to hone, to be able to look at someone and like understand where they are and how they're doing and maybe what they need, but at least just like, hey, how like I can kind of answer the question of how are you without asking them how are you. I'll tell you, that's a parenting superpower. Being able to look at my toddler, look at my 4-year-old and be like, you are not okay. Let's get you food, or let's get you water, let's get you ice, let's get you inside. I'm gonna get you a popsicle. I'm gonna tell you a joke. I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna tickle you. I'm gonna attack you. Like getting to what he needs to like get to the place of connection so that he feels safe and okay in the world. Because we're tribal creatures, people. We are tribal creatures. Your ability to connect with other humans is the thing that tells your nervous system that the world is a safe place. The more disconnected you feel, the more unsafe you feel. Because when we were evolving and living in caves and throwing stones to kill woolly mammoths, I'm not sure we overlapped with woolly mammoths. Please don't roast me in the comments. But when we were at that point of our evolution, our tribe was our safety. And if you were out of the tribe, you were unsafe. So if you ever feel like when you get totally alone and you spend a lot of time alone and you feel off, this happens to me and maybe anybody else, that's why. We're disconnected from our tribe, and being connected to our tribe is a really big thing. That's the key. All right, that's it. Highly recommend the book, Supercommunicators, Charles Duhigg. I'm not sure. I apologize, Charles. Highly recommend. I know the paperback version of this is coming out in September. I've also done the audiobook. Highly recommend both. Really, really good stories. And if you're looking for more of this kind of stuff, I'm gonna do some book reviews, some book intros to a couple of other things. I'll also do another one on Supercommunicators as the team and I get further into this and we process it together. But I'm going to highly recommend the work of Jocko Willink for getting your mindset right. If you approach this book as like, this has the answers, this is going to tell me this is going to give me what to do, it will, but it actually doesn't, it doesn't give you as much framing about you as an individual as I think is really helpful. And Jocko Willink's writing, whether it's Extreme Ownership or the Principles of Leadership, the Dichotomy of Leadership, really any of his books or any of his podcasts where he gets into step one is to own it. Step one is to realize that everything happens around you is your problem. It may not be your fault, but if the more you take ownership of, the more you take responsibility for, the better it goes. Highly recommend that as a foundation. This is really good about building relationships and how people, like the skills of communication. And then I think the book that is the ultimate application of this is Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss is a former FBI lead hostage negotiator. If you're a parent, fun little tip, fun little note. His book about hostage negotiation, those skills work really, really well with 4-year-olds, incredibly well. And so, Jocko can give you some guidance and help you figure out who you are and how to own the things around you so that all of this is more powerful. This is really phenomenal for the building of relationships and communicating in ways every single day that get you the relationships that you need and that you want. And then when you have to have hard conversations in those relationships, whether it's a business deal or a sale or trying to get a discount from the barista, trying to get the barista's phone number, maybe, I don't know, or trying to negotiate with your wife or your toddler, Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference is the absolute way to go. And again, I'll do some content on Chris Voss and Jocko in the future because I think they're both phenomenal and fantastic too. So again, Mountain Strong isn't just your work capacity. It's not just your stability. It's not just your strength. It's not just how much weight you can move or how well your hips can internally rotate, although all those things do matter. But the quality of your relationships is a big factor, right? It is the things that we have to live for. Yeah, we've got the mountains to live for, but also our friends, our family, ourselves, the communities that we're a part of. Those are the big pieces. Those are big rocks for us too, as humans, as tribal creatures. Until next time, Michael from Mountain Strong. See ya.